hard to keep it secret anyway, but from the very beginning, if you go all the way back, and I'm sure you can find all this crap on YouTube, if you go all the way back and look at his announcement speech when they came down the escalator to greet the peons, the only thing not gold-plated was him in Trump Plaza, you know. The whole first part of that speech is, I'm like really, really rich. And he kind of never misses saying it, right? And he goes to the state fair with the Trump helicopter and gives the kids rides on the Trump helicopter. Right? So massive disclosure, right, about this. Romney, timidity about it. And so Romney put himself in a box where every time somebody wanted to hit him, they just hit him with the fact that you're rich. And that, therefore, is bad. You can't, there's no way to hit Trump with this. It's good. And the blue-collar guy, which is about 15 points in the polls, it won't show, by the way, until election night. The blue-collar guy, here's how, so when Romney got caught, every time he got caught, and they had it rubbed in their nose again, that this prick is rich, and I'm not, it hurt him. And every time he tried to cover it, he made it worse. I called Carla in and I said, you just saw the end of the Romney candidacy. He was at some state fair, which of course, you know, this is like Nixon walking in the beach with his shoes on, you know, and it's, I mean, Romney at a state fair is like, oh no, you know. And he's talking about how Ann buys his shirts 5 in a pack at Costco. And I called Carla in and I said, you just saw the end. It had no hope anyway, but we can just, it's done now. Because he's apologizing for this thing he's getting caught at, being rich. Trump is as unapologetic as you can possibly be, therefore, he can't get caught at it. Everybody goes, well, look, I already knew that. And the blue-collar guys, see, they look at him like they got rich. The blue-collar guy's thinking exactly what I do. If I hit Powerball, this is me. I'm painting everything gold. I'm getting the biggest boat I can get, and I'm putting my name on the side of it, right? I'm trading Bertha in for some hot Russian chick half my age who doesn't speak English. This is exactly me, right? They're going, my guy, right? That's what they're doing. And so people think, oh, I don't want people to know that about me. No, no, no. You want them to know all about you. Because everything you got is some sort of rapport or affinity bridge for somebody. And by the very act of disclosure, you disarm people's defenses. And people hear these things, by the way, almost as dog whistles. You want to remember that too. So like my basic Peter Lowe speech, my magnetic marketing speech, has the disclosure in it that I had been bankrupt and had 2 cars repossessed. It's there. Hardly anybody hears it, except somebody who's been bankrupt or is going through bankruptcy. They hear it loud and clear. Here's how I know. Because they're in the crowd after me with the bag in their hand, waiting to tell me their bankruptcy story. They heard it. And I instantly had cred with them that I wouldn't have had otherwise. There's a line in the same speech about stuttering so badly as a child, but most people didn't hear that. But has disclosure to somebody who's got a kid who stutters or who stutters themselves, and here's how I know, because they're waiting to tell me their story with a bag in their hand of stuff they bought. after my speech. By the way, the bankruptcy people all wait till the end when almost everybody's gone. And then there's like 5 of them. And they're all, oh, you too? Yeah, it's not that uncommon, you know. What's the stat, by the way? You know, what's the percentage of the population? Do you know? It's more than 10% of the population, right? Every year is going bankrupt. I mean, it's not a, you know, it's not a small number, and a good percentage of them, by the way, are entrepreneurs. So these disclosures work. They don't hurt. And in many cases, see, they're not really paid attention to by people that they don't matter to, but to people that they matter to, they build a bridge for you. So disclosure is really very disarming. Transparency itself fascinates people. Penn and Teller, one of the things they're most famous for is 3-card monte with clear cups. Because nobody else does it that way. And people think, well, they're like showing me how it's done. They aren't, of course, but it feels like they're showing you how it's done. So people worry about that too. Well, I don't want to let them know how I do what I do. Then they'll go do it themselves. No, they won't. Not the ones you'd want anyway. So if you're in a client-related business, there's no harm whatsoever in showing you. I mean, 80% of all the copy I write is problem, agitate problem, discredit other options. Here's the solution. It's right in the Ultimate Sales Letter book. You can get it for $9. There it is. Okay? Plus examples. Doesn't stop anybody from hiring me. Okay? And if they got a brain, they can look at what I just did and say, well, shit, he did exactly what's in the damn book. Well, yeah, right? So disclosure is really pretty powerful. On the opposite side, so is intrigue and mystery. And the trick here is to have both. So the trick is to have both. It is to use transparency, use disclosure, but also hold some things back so that there is an ongoing curiosity between you and your audience, constituency, or market about how you do some things. Some weirdness about you, some eccentricities about you, some superpower by you, that always needs to be not quite disclosed. There's I'm going to give you the reference. I don't have the page numbers, damn it. But you probably own, and if you don't, you should own the book Power by, God, what's his name? No, that's an old, yeah, that's a good one. That's an old one. But no, the big, thick Power book. Robert Greene, thank you very much. So in Robert Greene's Power book, how many of you own it? Okay, not a bad book to reread, actually, particularly after this, by the way. So somewhere in it, the headline is Create an Air of Mystery. And there's a story about Mata Hari. It starts, so her rise, and at one time, by the way, she's very wealthy, multimillionaire. Her rise began in 1905, and rumors began to spread throughout Europe of this exotic person, actually an exotic dancer. And the public wanted to know about her, and so her whole story, when she would come to salons and dance, she would talk about the time she spent in India and how she learned these secret exotic mind control moves from Indian masters. And she had a story about Her grandmother was a Javanese princess, and she had lived on the island of Sumatra, where she spent her time horseback riding, gun in hand, and risking her life. She was compared to an Indian goddess. By the time she performed for the first time, she was a cult figure. Everybody's trying to get in the room to see her, and you kind of got to know somebody. Only during her trial, because she was finally executed as a German spy, did the truth come out. She was not from Java or India, had not grown up in the Orient, did not have a drop of Eastern blood in her body. Her real name was Margaretha Zell, and she came from Friesland, Holland. And when she got to Paris in 1904, she had 1 franc in her pocket. And she created this whole mysterious persona and story around her that kept people wanting to know more and more and more about her. And then the telephone game, see, that starts with people. So now he tells a story about you to him, and he embellishes it without you having even to embellish it. And it gets retold and embellished and retold and embellished and retold and embellished. So in any population, any controlled group, an industry, a profession, a community, the story starts to build and take on a life of its own. And when people want to know more about you, they are, of course, open to you, which means you can do things with them and do things to them because of their curiosity. So the trick here is to balance these two things and to try and have some of both working for you all the time. If you're 100% transparent, people lose interest pretty quick. Been there, done there, got that, right? If you are 100% mysterious, people get frustrated and they don't trust you because they don't feel like they know you. If there's some of both, somebody said to me, it was Larry Parman, nice compliment yesterday. Larry said, you always seem to be able to move the conversation forward, right? And you have to be able to do that to sustain people's interest over a period of time. This is a really good one, permission slips. People want to do things. They want to think things. They want to say things that, for one reason or another, they feel badly about. And so they either try not to think them, say them, or do them, or they keep it to themselves and sort of feel this shame about it. It is not anything they want on the, as everybody used to say, on the front page of the newspaper. So a lot of things that are talked about now sort of publicly, if you go back 10 years, they were not talked about. And if you go back 20, they definitely were not talked about. And if you go back 30, nobody even talked about them in the confines of their own home. I mean, they kept them totally to themselves. Trump is issuing a lot of permission slips that it's okay to think this way, the way you feel. Limbaugh's made a career out of it. So Limbaugh and Howard Stern are the 2 highest paid radio people in the world. They've made more money from radio than anybody else. And they have one thing in common. To a particular constituency, they issue permission slips that it's okay to think, talk, and act a certain way. So Howard Stern issues permission slips that it's okay, even though you're 46, to think, talk, and act like a 14-year-old. Go ahead. It's just fine. Right? And he has an audience because of that. Limbaugh tells people it's okay to think, we all know, and they come and listen to him for 4 hours a day, The average listener is 4 hours a day, 3 times a week. So they listen to him for 12 hours a week. To be told it's okay that you think this way. It's fine. Trump is simply doing Limbaugh amped up. Right? So when you dispense permission slips, that's pretty powerful. And so you will also find, and there's some overlap with empathetic statements. If you pick a book of mine at random and you go through it, you will find all kinds of permission slips. This is from a FBI agent on page 31, and it's pretty simple. Right? If you want people to like you and want to be around you and to confide in you and to feel withdrawal symptoms if you stay absent from them, simply make a practice of making them feel better about themselves and superior to others. And then they will want to be around you, stay with you, and give you money. So everybody has some sort of guilt and timidity and shame to be assuaged. And the minute it is, they feel better. And further, everybody would like to feel superior, and many people do. So many people do feel superior to others. They just keep it to themselves because they think they're not supposed to feel that way. It's a biggie amongst us, by the way. It's one I leverage a lot. If you went through a year worth of stuff with a highlighter pen, you'd find it a lot. I use Andrew Carnegie's quote a lot. You should, because look, the truth of the matter is, we are superior to most other people. Go look at them, right? I mean, they can barely find their way from point A to point B now with a GPS in a smartphone. You know, they're walking into each other, for Christ's sake, and out into the middle of the street getting run over. I mean, we're better than that most of the time, you know. So most of you are marching around most of the time feeling pretty superior to everybody you see around you. But you also know you're really not supposed to feel that way. Mm-hmm. So a lot, I say, no, that's fine. You're supposed to feel that way. Not only should you feel that way, you're right. Okay? So go ahead and feel that way. It's okay. You still might want to keep it to yourself, but between us, right, it's fine. They're morons. They are. Right? By comparison, I mean, you like all got here. Believe me, there's people this morning who forgot how to get to work. And they damn sure, you got here on time. That's like big. You guys probably know that. Major number of people can't get anywhere on time. They can't do it. We have this employee at the track, young. Well, we had. Finally got clear to fire. We have another one now that has this problem. So in the barn area, some of the people that take care of the horses literally live on the grounds. There's like dorm rooms. Okay? So her place is less distance from her place to the barn than from here to the front of the hotel. Okay? That's how close she is. Could not get to work on time. Gets docked. Every minute she's late, $1 goes in the pizza fund. This is not a high-paid person. She's down like $30 for the week. I mean, she can't get to work on time. He convinces her to go see a therapist. I swear to God. Here's what the therapist tells her. No big deal. Lots of people have this problem. Right? If that's the worst thing you bring to the table, your employer should be happy. What's 10 minutes? This is what the therapist tells her. Which means that's not the only person this therapist is telling this to, and it ain't the only therapist that's telling it. I see a Social Security disability category coming in the near future. Can't get to work on time? Stay home. We'll send you a check. Right? I can see it coming. Right? I said, we got to call the therapist. Somebody needs to explain to the therapist, if all your people get fired, they can't pay you. This is This advice is not in your best interest, and you should consider your best interest first, the patient's best interest second, but, But so you got here on time, most people can't get there on time. They can't do it. So you want, you are better, but you really can't, you can't get drugged by your spouse to the family gathering and look around at all the idiots, and you can't voice that. You can't even let it show on your face, right? It's mostly why now I don't go to family functions, because I can edit, but I can't really control kind of the energy that emanates from me. I can't help myself. So Carla goes, I stay with the dog. That's our new deal. So people want to be special. Here's a formula. It's used a lot in fundraising. It's useful for other purposes, but I'm going to give you the fundraising example. But here's the formula for getting cooperation from people by making them feel special. One is you explain a situation for which something is at stake. Secondly, you create and explain a role that the person can play in the situation. Third, you emphasize the importance of the role. People want to do things that are important. Okay? So we'll talk later. They always need explanation, right? And people mess this up all the time. I mean, if you want everybody wearing your bumper sticker on a car, you got to tell them why, what purpose that serves. Then you personalize it. Flattery will get you lots of places. Why you, Doc, are exceptionally well qualified. You're perfectly fit. You're the guy who can carry the water. You openly acknowledge that your request asks for a sacrifice of some kind. And then you put them on the spot and you ask if you can count on them. So sort of standard operating procedure then in charity and political fundraising is to use this. Little blue star, this is not in your book. So the situation is usually there's some sort of crisis or epidemic that is growing at exponential rates. All right. Or somebody is trying to take something away from us, and we got to fight them. It's usually one of those two things is the situation. The role of the individual is every contribution counts, right? So just by the act of contributing, you are demonstrating to the forces of evil that we can conquer this. And often, furthermore, in political fundraising, here's a little form letter you can also sign and send off to your congressman at the same time you send the donation to us. If you're on lists, you get these all the time. There's either a petition to sign, a card to sign and send back to them, and they're going to bundle them all and march them off to the department of whatever and drop them on the doorstep. Or there's a templated letter that you can send to your congressman. The importance of the role, right? This decision you're making here has real important consequences. So your $200 buys, what does $200 buy to how many pigs get fed? You're good at this. You're really good at this. Thank you. So it's $200 feeds 10 pigs for 2 weeks, right? I don't know how many kids it feeds, but so your $200 does something important. Your $50 does something important. Your $500 does something important. Together, we're going to end animal abuse. We're going to end starvation. And it's always we're going to end it, by the way, which incidentally never happens. Fourth, flattery. I know we can count on you because you understand this better. Unlike most schmucks, you actually care, right? You have some empathy. It takes a uniquely well-informed person to appreciate this problem. So there's some reason specific to them. Then, look, we know this may not be the best time for you. It's text time. And finally, we can't count, in this case, here's copy actually. Frankly, we can't count on our occasional casual donors the way we rely on you for your support. The need is so urgent, I have to ask, can we count on you? It's pretty formulaic. This is, who's this from? This is from Joan Rivers' old chair, God's Love We Deliver. And so here's, the need for our services has never been greater. By the way, it always gets greater. The need for our services has never been greater, and then there's some statistics to prove that. If you took this whole letter, here's number 2 on the list, none of this would be possible without you. Thank you for being there year after year, yada, yada, yada. So this is pretty formulaic in charity and in politics. Right? But it has application in all sorts of places. This should have a blue star, not in your book. Don't go looking for it. This is actually copied for Dr. Hawkins, aimed at chiropractors. Dear fellow health and wellness professional and advocate, what we do, what you do is vitally important. America is sick and getting sicker. Disease is winning. Big pharma is prescribing more and more drugs, and people are taking them and injecting them by the boatload. Blah, 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 blah. So this sets up, you're going to buy this thing because we're in a cause. We are on a mission. We are, and this works with people. It does not replace self-interest. It does not transcend self-interest, but it still helps a lot. Then we have your number 10, which, by the way, charities often miss this, and they shouldn't, because it's sort of the backside of it, ritualistic recognition. Let's talk about this a little bit, and then we will take a break. I noticed some college, forget which one, is in the news a week ago. They prohibited the wearing of National Honor Society pins to the college graduation. So if you had earned your National Honor Society pin, you couldn't wear it to the college graduation because it was demeaning and discouraging to the students who were not members of the National Honor Society. But ritualistic recognition is everywhere. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a graduation ceremony, right? So I worked with a client years ago. Jay's probably the only one in the room who would know Pete Fernandez, I think, but if anybody else does. So Fernandez was very big in practice management. Late 70s, early 80s? Jay left the room, huh? What did he go, back into the witness protection program and leave the two of you behind? Yeah, well, you're way too young for this. You're of no help. Late 70s, I think, early 80s. I lose track of my own life now. But so Fernandez had one of the, maybe the second biggest, we would call it coaching today, practice management programs in chiropractic. And the average doc was in for 3 years at $35,000 to $70,000, which in today's dollars obviously are a multiple of that. And their ascension levels were all medieval terminology. So you became a knight, and then you became a gold knight, and then you, Doberman Dans using Knights of the Round Table. And so at the meetings, now keep in mind these are chiropractors. So they're not MDs, but they are doctors. I mean, they did go to college. They are professional people with practices. The ones who have, hey, Jay, Fernandez. What? I know. Fernandez, late 70s, early 80s? Yeah. So Pete would sit up here at the meetings on this giant throne with a giant sword. And the doctors would come up to be knighted, sword on each shoulder, right, as they joined the Knights of the Round Table, which, was all tied to how much money they gave them. And they would have this ceremony at every meeting. And these grown adult men with professional practices in front of their spouses and employees, okay, just like a kid at the martial arts academy getting his belt, okay, would all come up on stage, kneel down, and be knighted by Pete sitting on the throne. I already understood this, but the first time I saw it, I went, holy shit. All right? I mean, you got to have some brass ones just to concoct this. I mean, but we should never lose sight of how powerful this is because it's baked into us as kids. We start the desire for ritualistic recognition. It's baked into us. School, Boy Scouts, church groups, all of that. And so this drives, so that the business now Nick has obviously joined. By the way, the eyeshadow's a bit much. The jacket's one thing, but, really. By the way, for about 8 years, the number one Avon lady in America was a guy. The number one Avon salesman in America was a guy. Right? And there were many jokes about that because that was some time ago. So there's a